I don't think this is just another bad period or that the world is ending. It feels more like a checkpoint, a pause, before judgment and justice on a global scale. One of those moments history doesn't fully explain until years later. An ego death of the moment acts when people look back and say, that's where there was a shift happening for real. Before this video starts, I wish it will age like fine wine. Download this video in case it gets deleted, and it doesn't make sense now, but you'll understand later. If it ends up being deleted, then it will be confirmation. Not to be dramatic, but it's going to be very different from what I've seen so far being posted on the internet. I think it will show why for itself, so please take something healthy to eat, drink some water, and listen closely, because over the next minutes of this podcast, I will act as an observer, giving you the fruits of my thinking. So help me spread this video as much as you can, because I truly believe that it will benefit the greater good of all. And you should do it no matter how you do it. You can take some clips, make shorts about it, every option there is to do it, to help you ease into it and get rid of the feelings of burden of all of it, to get a higher perspective. Please follow and do as I say. Trust me, you will feel much better afterwards. Note that if you feel like your ears are ringing a lot more than usual, if you feel like your heart or your mind are heavy or on fire, I'm here to tell you that it's part of a war strategy and that they are siphoning your energy for their enjoyment. And since we don't want that ever again, let's do some cleansing on a personal level in order not to be in agreement with any of their plans, and commending our energy collectively as a result of individual care for the betterment of all. Take a deep breath into the nose, out through the mouth, releasing all that doesn't belong to your highest potential. Slow down and let some peace come to you, and repeat after me. I now call all of my energy across timelines, spaces, realities, dimensions, and anywhere else that it might be, into the center of my being and inner universe. Breathe in, hold, and release what you don't need. Ground yourself back, and now say, I ground myself into the core of planet Earth, where my energy is clean, transmuted, and alchemized into poetic harmony for the physical and spiritual betterment of all life. I now command that any agreements, contracts, ties, and secrets to anything that does not move my life and the life of the people of Earth forward are nullified, deleted, and gone, as well as dissolved from my and everyone else's experience on the planet. Take a deep breath into the nose, out through the mouth. Let me know how you feel after this small grounding session, and enjoy the ride, because the general subject of this episode is a reflection of everything happening right now in and out of the spotlight. The counterproductive false transparency leading the world, how it affects the global population, and how the future is going to change using some pattern recognition, but also how each and every one of us has the power to choose what we will allow in the future on a global and personal scale, as well as asking deep questions in a safe environment that will lead to prosperity for mankind. I'm recording this video on February 6, 2020. at 2026. I know I'm no one in the grand scheme of things, but I hope this will serve as many purposes as I can give it. Whether it is a proof that no matter who you are, your color, your gender, what you identify with, your values, your belief, none of what is happening is normal. A time capsule of the thoughts of someone who wants the world to change and be better, to rid the filth and evil amongst the world's limiting people/systems and from how they came to be, as well as from the actions that keep people from experiencing a true life. I'm not here to cause any drama, panic, or negativity, but to give a much needed space that will both inform, heal, and create seeds of creative thinking for people to be able to practice self-regulation on a level where even the most powerful forces of evil can be exposed and the lights from even the tiniest sparks of good to the unlimited fire of beauty and peace can see through transparency and the truth through the veils of deceit and negative feelings into a solution for a greater collective good for all people on earth and humanity. I'm not here to rename what is already being understood and what is being understood as we speak in terms of events. I'm here to offer peace, perspective, and clairvoyance without tying names but actions, as these actions are not only tied to people but to a mentality. Pinpointing the names right now will only distract from the ones who aren't yet pinpointed, because they realistically aren't going to get repercussions just yet. And while yes, the names are important, especially the ones of the victims, the ones we currently have on paper are most likely safe to be taken a fall on by greater powers we might be aware of soon. For me, this is really just the tip of the iceberg that people are being discovering, and we're just giving like public information which is breadcrumbs of the actual truth. There has been breadcrumbs all over for years now, and I'm not here to make you convinced of anything. I mean, people are now willing to believe absolutely anything, and lots fall into different categories, but we need to let people be willing to believe in themselves and their power, and to teach them how to do so. I'm not here to convince you of anything else than keeping your peace and taking the most aligned action for you, your loved ones, and the global population, because I believe we all have some responsibility to choose what we will do and how we want to be remembered when it all goes down. But remember to be safe about it, and remember that everyone will work differently throughout this, but don't be afraid to show your emotions and thoughts, because as momentum grows with the ones who took the risks and responsibilities to talk loudly on the problems and create a common dialogue that exists despite cultural differences, the need for accountability created by this common dialogue will become inevitable. We are now all in the same fight toward what lies beneath, and nothing is certain until we all agree that goodness and love needs to be a priority for humanity to keep existing. We're not going to let people and the people playing with the topics and beliefs of others get out of this situation. We're not going to fight another war because they thought we should, or they tried to distract us by going one way and saying look at this while acting in another way. If all we are seeing here is just the tip of the iceberg, let's focus on what the main topics are. I'm not here to tell you what you think. I'm here to let you understand what you can be instead of what you would seem to be now, and looking back to know you have and always had the power to change things. Seeing the subjects, it needs to be done strategically, intelligently, and with facts over feelings, because feelings can be weaponized in horrible ways when not grounded into facts, leading to a greater good. And only the purest parts can remain if we want to have justice and bring balance to life. I feel the need to say that I am not suicidal, and am actively working on my own happiness. It's literally in the name of my indie game, So in order to write about it, I had to know about it, and how to be happy despite the hardest consequences. Dissociative identity disorder in PTH is a narrative framing device used in the game to bring a higher perspective already deeply installed into the world to a more abstract front on interpersonal levels of consciousness, morality, and thought patterns. I'm here to share my vision, which is based in integrity and love for what this world could be based on personal experiences and beliefs. The story, being a choose your own adventure game, reflects your own mind, especially in the environment, and it's my mission, so I'll never give up on it. It feels important to say this after seeing all the fear that is being created and the role I want to play during this time in history. I hope this video will reflect and reach the same thoughts of someone somewhere who saw things for what they clearly are from multiple points of view. Someone who saw the opportunity and a way out, choosing pure happiness and divine guidance as a force for the best and most poetic future when all is done and the shift ends. This video has a lot of chapter. I'll dive deeply into it calmly, connecting the dots, so be sure to look at the table of content for each chapter. And with that being said, hi, I'm Alex. Glad to have you. Welcome if you're new. Thanks for listening to the Alex podcast. This is the first episode, which, as you can see by me reading on my phone, is scripted, seeing like how complex all of these subjects are. I need to somewhat keep them together, and just focusing on the notes is gonna make it even much more like ordered. I really hope the next episode of the Alex Talks podcast are gonna be much lighter. I will make art for my game when making the live streams and stuff, so yeah. Anyways, we have a lot of things to talk about, so let's start with this. You might have preconceived ideas of what this video is gonna be, but in order for you to understand me clearly, I will first say what this video isn't, then how it's meant to be experienced, and finally the nuance of the dialogue I'm trying to open. We are currently living between two worlds, and we're somewhat forced into reflection to face these topics. We're all having very different reactions to everything happening, and it feels both confusing and all over the place. It's creating much more division where there doesn't need to be. And though, like, this thought session is here to act as a pillar for a big shift in the foundations, where we need a deep period of purification to create prosperity. This episode is not news analysis, a history, philosophy, or human psychology class, political or religious commentary, conspiracy theory, or shock content. This is none of this. And while these are topics which are being talked about in this video, they serve as context for what led people into having these feelings. It is a long form reflection meant to be listened to while walking, sitting reflectively, lying down, or thinking. I'm naming feelings everyone already has, but needs to be put into words and perspective amongst like other points of views, because it feels like we're standing in a strange way, like we're standing still in a strange way, and I just want to mark something out there, you know? But everything feels loud and unmoving, and I'm here to talk about this moment. This is a history checkpoint, and to explain checkpoint, I need to use a video game analogy. In games, a checkpoint isn't the end of the level. It's where progress stops, saves, and waits for input. History has checkpoints too, moments where systems stall, narratives crack, and people stop believing what they're being told but haven't decided what comes up next yet. This is a moment where progress poses as overflow overwhelms the masses. More often than not, history is only understood in hindsight, and how people living through them rarely know what is happening is directly tied as much is being showed and made aware of as public information. The fact that they are overflowing information creates a lot of deeper issues which are extremely hard to navigate. Starting with the feeling of inaction, the first question this checkpoint is asking people is why people say nothing is happening. From an outsider point of view, it looks like nothing is happening to stop what is coming because of the lack of physical results in the real world, while the entire internet seems to be on fire. But it's deeper than nothing is happening yet. People are now more and more sharing information to make people aware. No matter of their beliefs, people are scared for their life and safety. The people who didn't think the conspiracies were true are now feeling like they are in psychosis, and a lot of people are starting to think that like they were dumb, to think that nothing was true, you know? And in a way, some other people also try to desensitize the masses, turning it into jokes, memes, and whatever, but it is no joke, this is no fantasy, this is actually happening and has happened, and it's continuing to happen as we speak, you know? And it's really depressing because if you've been on social media for the past few months, especially for the last few days, you will have noticed a lot of shifts in how people talk about the situation, what info are being shared, how the whole world is starting to understand that conspiracies weren't fake, and how people were warned but many failed to listen, and how needless division is trying to ask for unity once the world realizes what clearly needs to be done. That means people do care, but lots are now stuck in a period of exhaustion or apathy where constant outrage stops the movement. Exhaustion comes from all the energy being taken away by the news, constantly handing content and every lead being made about the situation without giving it time to breathe, as well as the fight taking more time than it feels necessary because of distractions and lacks of results in the real world. Apathy comes from the lack of reaction, both inside the house and outside to the rest of the planet. To those who are now falling into the rabbit hole, and even those who knew, it's okay to be scared, it's normal. But you have to alchemize these feelings into power. A lot of people are scared for very valid reasons to see what is going to happen. But, you know, those within the apathy situations go over the situation as a form of self-care or protection, just waiting for the situation to end as they feel powerless. All of these feelings, again, are valid, but please remember that there are no people like us in, like, this world to blame for what is actually right now, and to blame for these feelings or the radicalization. The system of evil and the generation of participants within these systems that are being used are what is causing these feelings to begin with. And there is no people or stupid thought to have within this shared fatigue, because it will divide even more. Regardless of what you think and what you align with in terms of political agenda, religious beliefs, or whatever you know or think you are, this pause asks you to analyze the deepest details while still cleansing what part of your feelings do not serve your fight or you, or doesn't belong to you or your prosperity. Falling into madness is exactly what is being expected of you at this time for their bigger plan to work, and keeping your peace is the best way to resist. I see people hesitating because reacting the same way again feels pointless. When every situation and solution offered looks like a recycled version of the problem, movement stops, not of weakness, but out of exhaustion and lack of trust. Trust is what makes systems move. When trust collapses, everything slows down. Intuition, interesting. Institution still speak in certainty, but no longer feel represented in the outcomes. Decisions feel distant, consequences feel local. That gap creates silence. Trust has been broken over and over again to the point where more and more people are asking, when will it be enough for you to realize? Mindlessly hating on others which are in the same boat as you isn't going to change anything. Opening your eyes to the fact that more people become repressed for certain parts of their identity, which in turn only consolidates the parts which are seen as marginalized, while nuance of actual information being thrown out of the window to create more confusion and amalgams, however, will change things. You can't trust anything anymore, even more when AI is involved. And it's coming to a point where you might even not be able to trust anything that has ever been put out in this world, you know? And more precisely, the masses need to get a big sense of critical thinking and common sense into anything to see the truth for what it is. And trust has been dissociated between multiple cultures based on meaningless buzzwords on any agenda and attitude someone has over their thoughts, and that on all subjects all over the sun, villainizing people who only want to live their truth and their opinion to a degree, leading masses and minorities against each other for no valid reason. Misusing and only asking to misunderstand others, appearances deceiving the heart of the message, trying to get points across. People judging and hearing without listening deeply to the common good between the lines, the people and what they represent and what they are saying. There are definitely crumbs of information in all ways, but these are all things built on top of a society as a notion of systematic control and repression, because the ones at the top know that they're outnumbered. And installing evil is only going to rally more and more towards a common fight when the people do realize what is going on and how to take action. Trust has been crushed by systems, and the ones at the top playing with fire and normalizing vices that should have never even been fathomed of being accepted in the first place. For years and even decades now, lots of things have been normalized, and this pause asks us how much tolerance to the abhorrent intolerance are we going to be hard-coded with until the lesson is learned, and how tolerant are we willing to be towards the wrong type of intolerance. Trust within the system set in place by those at the very top has been broken and should have never been existing in the first place, but we can't blame people for not reading between the lines, the lies, the backlogs, and the details when they were distracted all along. The systems built on power and oppression all around the world are realistically not meant for people to live a good life anymore, but for elites who have the goods and who had the goods to play with the narrative, which is pulling a distance between what was and what will be. The further we go into history, the more we are rapidly discovering clips and evidences of things being planned from a very long time ago. The system has a lot of darkness inside of it and parts we don't even see, but they see us and our reactions, so we need to put distance with the ways they can try to control us, even subconsciously. The distance and control the elites are putting all over people are put in place because they know they can't win if the people actually rebel. Also, using religion to divide when in the end it all represents the same thing only divides more. Mislabeling, mistranslating, and censoring is leading to even more conflict now. For example, there is now a second satanic craze going on because it was mentioned that some very dark and twisted people in position of power were doing rituals, and people thought of it as Satanism when they clearly state that they are worshipping Baal, which is not Satan. And actually, Satanism is more about self-worship than it is purely about the god they worship. I'm not saying that Satanism is the way. Of course, you are entitled to your own opinion. I don't really have a say on this, but all in all, if they're trying to put an agenda out there that, like, some types of people are bad, and this is the info that is trying to be put, like, inside of your head and DNA, even subconsciously, the elites are using God's name in vain to play into appearances and commonly regarded good ideologies on paper. And I'm not talking about Satanism here, but religion has and always will act as a form of control and guidance based on those you worship. The elites didn't become what they are today because of a deity that gave them superpowers. They became what they are through planning and action, even the most subtle ones, and all of that happened in the dark. So you becoming unpredictable will be what this pose will teach you and what saves you. The fractures within the system, the foundations of said systems, and the people caught inside of them are showing more and more, which makes everyone second guess everything or be justified in their theories. People are finally opening their eyes to a lot of truth some other people have been saying for years but weren't taken seriously. So yes, it is that deep. And it's deeper than we think for sure. There are way more actors we don't know about, and we probably never will. But my point stays the same on how trust makes system move. The positive side, though, is that pure trust to make system move in a globally beneficial way when it is almost naive or gaslit to do so will always be the best way to make a decision when certainty feels so distant, especially when pure trust is shared and creates enough momentum to make actions happen. Systems have been institutions for the most part, but institutions in the sense of organisms which came together to achieve a goal, and that's why installing systems feels heavily abstract. A system by default can be about anything or created by anyone, especially if they are a group effort. A system is something structural by design, and those who are misaligned are fast to be broken down in analysis until everyone agrees and takes action. This misaligned morality mixed with the way of the facts are mainly why people emotionally withdraw while trying to process how morality impacts absolutely everything. This pose wants us to prioritize people over abstraction, and while they all will pass someday, as death is inevitable no matter how you try to put it and no matter how much researches you are trying to put into it, history doesn't change when power decides to be kinder. It changes when people stop identifying with abstraction and start identifying with each other. Not violently, not loudly, but persistently. Every meaningful shift began as a cultural alignment before it became a political one. Real change has historically started culturally when people prioritized the population over the higher class. Even if real change looks like rebellion or takes part of the earth with it. Alignment matters more than rebellion, because rebellion can be stopped with enough force, but aligned positive collectivity is truly unstoppable. This is not telling you not to rebel. That is telling you to be aligned with others towards the same fight, in a way that is good for you and to you. The ones at the visible top of the iceberg are scared shitless now that everyone is waking up and they realize they cannot get out of this. Community and pressure are digging deeper into where the evidence leads. They flew too close to the sun and thought the people were stupid. And we as people have the power to go against what is putting us down more than we realize. And the more we realize how much evidence they left behind, they should be scared of humanity versus the roots of evil. Humanity is all about communication and community, because we are social beings after all. And community always precedes reforms, because reforms are created when community makes enough noise. Small human choices truly matter over grand narratives. History changes when people choose each other over symbols. This checkpoint is probably the biggest symbol. A checkpoint isn't about speed, it's about direction. What this direction asks of us is many more questions from the ones that are already asked here, so here are some more. What do we refuse? Who do we listen to? Where does our faith should be to end these cycles once and for all? What feels wrong but familiar? What feels like it's more than just a coincidence? Where was this familiarity created? What do we want to carry forward? What are we tired of pretending is fine? What can we do to tell what is true or false? What can we learn from the past? What patterns have been in place, and what patterns lead to what consumes the good, yes, only to turn it into bad? What was planned for us and how we can counter these negative plans? What is really the source of all of this? How can we protect ourselves so the truth comes out in its entirety? How can we live happily throughout these times? How will this all end if we don't stick together? What can I do on my end to resist to terror and oppression, no matter how small it is? Who do we stand with when the narrative fails? If we rush through it, we repeat history, we reflect and we rewrite it. And finally, how can we get rid of the feeling of being stuck for good? And yes, I say the feeling of being stuck because I don't think that we are stuck. I think we're deciding and evolving slowly, quietly, individually. Then history will name this moment later as the Great Awakening. Not for what was decided at the top, but for what people chose to tolerate or not. All of this isn't the game, but what saves our next depends on us. For now, we just have to live through it, be aware and grounded, and honestly take the best action we can for the greater good of all things and of ourselves. Thanks for your time. Thank you for being here. Until next time, take care, be good, never stop getting rid of true evil and the true evil that is in details. Love ya, see ya, and just protect your peace.